Hi, and welcome to my CIE Media Studies Creative Critical Reflection, question 3. The question is, how did your production skills develop throughout this project? When I started my Media Studies A-level in September, I didn't know anything about cameras, filming, about software, about pre-production, production, post-production, or any planning. In our first camera workshop on the 18th of September, we learned how to set up a tripod, to put the camera on the tripod, to bubble it, and to set up the camera for filming. We were shown different types of cameras like the Sony NX5, the Sony FS100 and the Sony FX7, besides the Blackmagic, which we used later on for our sequences. To set up the camera, we first had to set up the tripod by placing it on the floor and adjusting the height of the legs, after which we slid the camera onto the tripod and fixed the camera. Then we had to bubble the camera with the so-called spirit level. So it is leveled and not off, meaning the camera is straight and the frame is not off center. To achieve that, we had to bring the bubble on the spirit level into the middle of the red circle. Finally, we put a battery on the back of the camera and turned the camera on. I didn't know how to do this prior to this session. Another thing we learned was the yours and mine rule, which is important if you handle expensive equipment like cameras. The rule is very simple. If you hand someone a camera or a lens, you say yours, and the person who you are handing the camera must say mine as soon as he takes the camera or the lens safely in his hands. You must hold onto the equipment until the other person says mine. This is some industry-style terminology that I now know how to use. Yours.
Mine.
In addition, we learned about focus, zoom and exposure on a camera lens. A camera lens has different wheels which control the zoom, focus and exposure. To achieve the perfect focus, you have to zoom in as far as you can on the object you are filming and then adjust the focus. Otherwise, you won't be able to get the perfect focus. This was crucial for filming our opening sequences, because otherwise everything would have been out of focus. The exposure was at the back of the lens and could be adjusted by turning the wheel. At last, we learned about white balance. Using white balance, you are able to adjust the colors of your shot between an either more bluish light or more yellowish light. Those two types represent the natural, the sun, and the unnatural, studio light. Depending on the light conditions in your shot, you have to change the white balance. This was important, it helped us. We were shooting black stripe because we were filming inside a room with windows, so we had to cover up the windows to cancel out the natural light and brought in some studio lights to make it look more like a room without windows. In the second camera workshop, on the 19th of September, we learned about different types of focus, 2 rules and the specific color terminology used in the industry. To begin with, Matt taught us the rule of thirds, which is about placing objects in the frame depending on their importance. First of all, you have to imagine a grid on the frame, which divides the frame in 9 equal squares, creating 4 overlapping spots, which are called hotspots. The first hotspot is in the top left corner, the second in the top right, and so on. The most important object you are filming will be therefore on the first hotspot, and so on. This helps to place our characters and objects we were filming in the space. Another rule we learned about is the 180-degree rule. The 180-degree rule can be explained as an imaginary line between characters or objects that you as a cameraman can't cross. If you cross the line, it looks like a character, for example, is talking to himself instead of talking to the other character. However, in some films it is used to express the surrealism of the film. Then we learned about the 3 stages of focus. The first stage is the depth of field. This means that an object or a person or a small area in the frame is in focus. The rest on the frame is out of focus. Second stage is the deep focus. This means that everything on the frame so the whole frame is in focus. The third stage is a focus pull. This means that the focus changes during the shot, having the focus first on one object and then focusing another object. Each of these stages are used to create different atmospheres. The first stage attracts the audience attention on the object and focus, whereas the second stage shows the audience the whole frame and allows them to see the whole image without focusing on one object in particular. The third stage changes the attention of the audience between two objects which are in focus. Finally, Matt taught us the terminology to use when we are shooting a sequence. The call-outs go as follows. The director says, "Stand by." When everyone else is ready, they respond with "standing by." Next, the director says, "Roll camera." The cameraman presses the record button and responds, "Camera rolling." When the director is ready, he shouts, "Action," and the scene starts. After a take, the director shouts, "Cut," and they stop recording. With these new learned skills, we shot a short film of around 20 seconds. Next, we went on to the editing software in our first editing workshop. We were introduced to Adobe Premiere Pro, which is the standard editing software of the industry. In this workshop, we edited our footage we recorded in our second camera workshop. Matt taught us about the in and out points, which are very important for the cut in movement. For example, if a character grabs an object, we want to cut from a mid shot to a close shot of the character grabbing the object. We have to cut in movement. This is called cutting on movement. The in and out points therefore help us to distinct the right moment where the cuts should be. Learning about the software was very important for our development as an amateur director and filmmakers, and for our opening sequence. Without the knowledge we gained in that workshop, we wouldn't have been able to create our sequences. Before our next camera workshop, we learned about the different shots, and camera angles and camera movements. We have the extreme long shot, establishes the whole scene. The long shot shows the whole person and some background. The mid long shot shows the whole person. The mid shot shows upper half of the person. The close up shows the head of the person. The extreme close up shows the eyes of the person. The over the shoulder shot is, like the name says, the shot over the shoulder. It's often used in conversations. Then we have the two shot, is showing two characters or objects equally in the frame. Then we have the canted or Dutch tilt. It is called when the frame is off center. It is used, for example, in Inception. Then we have the low angle shot, which is from a low angle filming upwards, which often makes the audience feels weak. Then we have the high angle shot. It's the contrary, from a high angle filming down, which makes the audience feel superior. Then we have a pan. It's a camera moving from right to left or from left to right horizontally. Then we have the tilt, which is a camera moving up and down vertically. And we have a tracking shot, which is when a character in the film is tracked by the camera or an object. Then we have a zoom, which is going closer or further away from an object. In our third camera workshop, we filmed a sequence with dialogue for the first time. Here we learned new skills in the form of looking out that every actor finishes his lines and does the same action every take. If you wouldn't look out for that, and an actor, for example, uses his right hand to open a door in one shot, and then his left hand to open the door in the next shot, we can only use one of the footages. Also, we had to write a script for it. In addition, we learned how to use a microphone, which was especially for our sequence very important, as we had a lot of speech in our sequence. In our second editing workshop, we edited our dialogue sequence from our third camera workshop. Matt showed us how we can copy the rushes, which are files, and how to create a bin, which is a folder. This helps us because when we were editing, we should copy the good footage we want to use in a separate bin. So we have a bin with all our originals and one with the footage we want to use and can manipulate. In our final camera workshop, before we shot our actual opening sequence, we shot a sequence involving a gun. Matt taught us while using a prop gun, obviously not to destroy the gun, but also to keep our finger off the trigger if we are not shooting a scene. We again created a script which developed our skill of screenwriting, which was very helpful and crucial in the pre-production of our opening sequence. A paramount thing to consider for shooting a sequence with a gun is that the actor holding the gun must recreate the recoil of an actual gun, and the actor who is getting shot at must recreate the feeling of actually getting shot at. In our last editing workshop, we edited the gun sequence we filmed in the camera workshop before. For that, we used Adobe Premiere Pro, and we were introduced to After Effects, an Adobe program. First, we had to finish the picture and sound cut before we could move on to editing the effects into the sequence. It works as follows. First, after finishing the picture cut, you have to open After Effects. Look for the right muzzle flash and gun sound, copy the file and paste it into the project and lengthen or shorten it for your sequence. Using these pieces of software has given me an understanding of how to create industry standard projects. When we started with our opening sequences, we first had to come up with 3 different ideas which we would pitch to our class. The reason why each of us should create 3 ideas was that when we are divided in our groups, we try to create a single story by mixing the ideas together. Before dividing us in groups, Katie gave me some feedback on my initial ideas. Most of them could be improved by a big amount due to the available resources. This showed me that you always have to look at your available resources before thinking of how to develop an idea further. Another important lesson I've learned is that when you are in a production team, you have to listen to your partners as well and engage their ideas. Having quite a lot of trouble deciding what to do has really showed me how to work in a team on a creative project. As a director/producer, it was our responsibility to organize everything around the film, starting with the location. After the discussion, we decided to film in the study room of Beatrice Webb House, a boarding house of our school. We had the TV studio in our school as a Plan B location if we couldn't go into B-Web. This is a vital note to keep in mind for future projects. Always have a Plan B location if something goes wrong. So, we created a plan for the setup in B-Web and in the studio. We had to go to the housemaster of B-Web to ask for permission so we could film in his house. In addition, we needed Matt's permission because we needed someone to bring the equipment to the boarding house. Both gave us permission, but filming in B-Web had some disadvantages as we couldn't bring down every equipment we would have been able to use in the studio. So another important thing I've learned is that as an independent director, you might have disadvantages when you are shooting in different spaces. Next, we tried to get the props we needed for the shoot. As we changed our idea about halfway through the process, we had to change the props list again. However, it also had an advantage, namely that we didn't need as much props as we did before. We only needed a wine, 4 chairs, tape, and 4 cuttable ropes. We easily got the chairs, ropes and tape from our theatre department, and our teacher got the wine for us. From this I learned that it is very important to have good connections as a director so you can access props easy, cheap and fast. We didn't have to do much for the costumes because each of our actors had the clothes we needed in their own wardrobe, so we didn't have to get any additional outfits. Finally, to get our cast, we didn't have any auditions. However, we chose our cast carefully and tried to represent age and gender stereotypes, but also show a variety. After we chose our cast, we contacted the people we had in mind to ask for their participation. All the different skills, from setting up a camera on a tripod to adding a muzzle flash of a gun to planning a whole sequence, made me confident to produce more practical work. The day before, we arranged the room to prepare it for the shoot on the next day. On the shoot day, we brought the equipment to B-Web by car, set up the lights and the camera, moved last bits in the set around and started filming. During the whole shoot, we changed the angles and camera movements multiple times. Then we had to edit our sequence in about 3.5 weeks. We spent a lot of time together editing, especially cutting in movement and cutting during the monologue. The editing workshops on editing with dialogue and cutting in movement prepared us very well for that. At the end, we had to edit all our titles in sequence, which was fairly easy after we chose all the names and after the effect editing workshops. Next year, we'll have to create a music video using the same equipment. So, all the workshops did not just prepare us for this sequence, but also for the music video shoot next year.